Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm so sorry about this. I just need to sort out some settings, so I sincerely apologize. Welcome to our second webinar on positive discipline, and thank you very much for joining us on Saturday morning. We have almost 300 people registered for this program so far. So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and there's people from all walks of life really registered for this. And as we go through now, we will have more and more people joining us. Just quickly about Anida Trust. Anida Trust is an educational organization. We were established in 2005, and we really focus on promoting education by developing teachers, empowering parents, and supporting students. We've been working both in the UK with supplementary schools, Muslim schools, and government schools, along with in various countries. We've been working very strongly with Turkey, Qatar, some of the African countries such as Gambia, and also now recently we have started doing some work in Europe, particularly in Holland, where there are about 40 government-funded Muslim schools. Alhamdulillah, we have been also doing a lot of work in terms of promoting the teaching profession and developing teachers to become school leaders as well. One of the areas that we've really kind of focused on is developing parents and empowering them, because we believe that that parents can play a significant role in education, and also they can be a strong influencers and also decision makers in the local area as well as at a national level in terms of making a difference to education. As you know, in Muslim community, one of the big areas that we have issues with and challenges that, in fact, is education. And we really want to really promote that area of education and ensure that our community is ready for the future generation to come. Today's session is on positive discipline, and it will be led by Dr. Abdul Bari. Now, I'm not going to say a lot about Dr. Abdul Bari because I can go on for hours talking about his biography, but just a quick snippet really. Dr. Abdul Bari is one of our leading community figures, and Alhamdulillah, we're very blessed to have people like him who have been doing work relentlessly to lead the community and showing us new directions on things. He has been a chairman of East London Mosque, Secretary General of MCB, and have been involved with Muslim Aid as well as Markfield Institutes as well. He has published a number of books, and also now he spends a lot of time writing as well for newspapers and for various other outlets. So I'm going to now pass it to Dr. Abdul Bari for him to take the session. This session is for an hour, so after an hour, you're welcome to leave. But like last time, some people wanted to stay and ask questions and things like that. We may be able to continue for about 20 minutes after the hour, but you are most welcome to leave after an hour. There's no need for you to stay if you feel that if you want to go. That's not a problem at all. If you want to continue, then as I said, we can extend it for another 20 minutes or so for further questions. In terms of asking questions, if you can please put your hand up using the reaction button, that will be great, so I can let you in to ask the questions. If you don't want to do that and you ask questions through the chat, then you're also welcome to do so. But I would prefer that you put your hand up. So I will now pass it on to Dr. Abdul Bari now for him to lead the session on positive discipline. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Abdul Bari.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair, Faisal. Jazakumullah khair, Nida Trust, and brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanallah, it's a wonderful opportunity to say a few words on this topic as part of the overall parenting in this unusual time. thanks Nida Trust for organizing this. Subhanallah, this is so important. I will straight away go into the topic, and this is a very important area as part of parenting. And if you go to the next slide, Brother Faisal, and I just repeat this, there are a couple of slides I'm repeating that I mentioned last week. To me, parenting is about our building families and building people. When I say building people, that is something that needs bigger discussion. We need to create people or raise people from our future generations who would be, in reality, from the Islamic terminology, they will be the stewards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. They will be the best of human beings. They'll try to be the best of citizens in a country, and they will try to be the best Muslims. So these are aspirations and ambitions parents should have and should aspire. Reality and idealism is totally different. We know this. So in the process, we have to look after the children's overall growth, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual growth and development, relationship that we discussed a bit last week, and discipline. I'll discuss this today. And of course, we raise our children in the context of, say, wider family, friend circle, family circles, and community, neighborhood. So a child should grow as part of this overall background. And of course, how we should take faith and spirituality as the core of our life, not just religious rituals. Okay, coming back to the positive discipline, there is a saying in English language, and that is, spare the rod and spoil the child. And I just went through the history of this saying. What it basically means, if you don't discipline your child, and at that time, this is from Samuel Butler, who was a poet in the 17th century, and he wrote this in different contexts, but this is being used in the Victorian time to spank or smack children to better discipline. And in this country, this smacking was there until very recent decades. And in the developing countries, Muslim countries, still probably that is there. So by discipline, it means physical punishment or telling off. What we know in the West, that, and of course, that's through Islamic parenting tradition as well, that children until the age of 7 should be given absolute love, limitless love, safety, care, and time, so that through the process they develop their personality in the early phase of their life. So smacking or physical punishment doesn't come in, and if it comes in, that means parenting is rather very weak or is failing. Okay, so I'll discuss a bit about this discipline issue, towards the end of, there's a spectrum in the discipline sequence. Smacking is towards the end, and in some countries this is illegal, in some countries this is allowed, but with very special conditions. Okay, so this slide and the following slide, if you go to that, inshallah, is just a reminder of the last session, and that's the second one is about creating a discipline in the family. When I say discipline, means structure, how a family would be run, and how the interactions of family members will create a synergy rather than destructive, negative, pessimist vibe in the family. So basically what we should look after as parents is to look after everybody's mind, body, and soul. This is hugely essential, especially in this pandemic crisis. We know about the rise of mental health problems and domestic violence. So for this, whatever we need to do in our small areas that we are in, although it's being relaxed, but the advice is we should be very, very careful going out. And even WHO is advising people to wear masks. And even government is asking this nowadays in this country. We always are late in giving directions to the people. So mind, body, and soul is physical fitness, and mind finding time to read, relax, contemplate, and the relation also is important. Safety and well-being of parents and children are fundamentally important. We sometimes forget that parents, by talking about children, probably gives the impression that parental safety and well-being is not important, but that is probably more important, because they are the one who look after their own body as well as body and cells, as well as their own children. And also I mentioned about the one-to-one and cheerful family sessions. That is fundamentally important, either in house or virtual if families are away, and this should be done in daily agreed time that we discussed last time. And if things go wrong in a family, that's not the end of the world. I mentioned that last week as well. Every parents should review this every night and try to improve upon what things went wrong, and plan for the better tomorrow or next week. If we go to the next slide, then my start of this session is anger, because this is an emotion that can jeopardize not only family relationship but also many other things. And anger is a human feeling that is embedded in our nature. We cannot ignore that. And in fact, anger is essential in humanity. If anger is compared to fire, then fire is the fire that cooks. For us, it is essential. Without that, we cannot cook. But the fire that demolishes forests by burning things, that is destructive. So our anger should be controlled and managed. Last week, I discussed about some of the ways of overcoming anger, managing anger. In this slide and the next slide, I'll talk about what are the things that brings anger and what are the signs of anger, so that it is important. In the next slide, I'll show about what Prophet ﷺ said. Now, triggers is something that prompts some people to act. That is their basic definition. So all human beings do not get angry for similar things. Somebody gets angry if there is a name calling, or mom is cursed, or so every human being is different. Prophet ﷺ got angry when anyone, not just because anyone did not understand, could not understand things, but because they were taking Allah's message in a wrongful manner, probably. And his expression of anger was just his face was getting slightly red, and Sahaba realized that Prophet ﷺ is not happy at the moment. Okay, so the triggers is for family members to understand everybody's trigger is important. So if mom and dad, children, and everybody in the family know why mom and dad gets angry, and a certain child gets angry, then it's better to just avoid. So it could be teasing, bullying, name calling. I'm talking about this probably in the school field, lying, blaming, accusing, and most parents I know that they can accept the children's rudeness or misbehavior, but lying is unacceptable to, I think, most Muslim parents, and should be unacceptable, because lying is the mother of all evils. So lying, blaming, accusing, physical and mental stress. So if members of the family, especially adult or semi-adult members of the family, know each other's triggers, then they will not go into that area. They will not arouse anger in that family members. Well, of course, in a family there could be teasing and other thing, that is mutual teasing, and that is totally different. The mutual things done for the love of the family members. That's wonderful. I used to tease my long ago, and I can see one of my sons keeps on teasing his mom. That's my wife, and it reminds me that I used to do this with my mom. So that gives the happy memory. So that's mutual teasing and mutual desire. That's other thing. But real trigger of anger, every family member should understand, so that they don't go near that and unnecessarily arouse anger in the family member. What are the signs? That's also important. If people know that this is how my mom or dad behaves, if he or she or he becomes angry. So if you know the sign, then you'll be careful. As Sahaba realized that Prophet ﷺ slightly red face mean he was angry. So they were careful. So that's also another important things for family members to know, or close people to know, close friends to know, or colleagues to know. So that signs or warnings could be internal. For some people, that increased heart rate or blood pressure or high level of adrenaline or feeling tense, etc. People cannot realize, but close people probably could realize. External factors such as facial expressions, frowning, body language, etc. that we can see. And also, some people do act in a certain way. Some people stammer. Some people probably say bad words. And I'm coming to the next slide on that. And some people break things. Some people become violent. Of course, that's totally unacceptable. But this is important for family members to know the triggers and also the signs when family members show internal or externally. If we go to the next slide, then I will mention one or two things about anger in the eyes of Islam. And there's a beautiful hadith, and that can be linked with the people who get angry. You know, there's a beautiful hadith that ayatul munafiqi thalathun, idha haddasa kadhaba, wa idha wa'ada akhlafa, wa idha tumina khana. That means these signs of hypocrisy or nifaq are three. One is, if someone speaks, tells a lie. Someone makes a promise, breaks it. Someone makes a covenant or keeps amana to him or her, becomes treacherous, doesn't maintain the trust. And the fourth one in another hadith is, if he quarrels, that means if he argues with someone, behaves in a very imprudent, evil, and insulting manner. That means another hadith said the abusive words. So whoever has one of these features has one feature of a hypocrite. So mom and dad, adults should be very careful that even if we get angry, even if we argue, we should not go beyond the etiquette, civility, Islamic manners. That is important. And in a family, if mom and dad maintain this, then children will learn that, okay, there have been some argument between mom and dad, but they are within the limits. They will have more respect because the manners of mom and dad, because in human life, one cannot be fully free of anger and other emotional shortcomings. If we go to next slide, then this one probably I discussed in the last session as well, because I find this fundamentally important. It is important because the reason of the fall of Muslims, not Islam, fall of Muslims over generations and centuries is because Muslims came away from the ethos or practice and culture of seeking knowledge. To me, that's the fundamental. Political fallout or invasion of the other Mongols and others, Crusaders invasion and colonialism, these are historical realities. And all this came because historically, probably after the fall of Baghdad, when libraries were decimated across the Muslim world, apart from Egypt, Genghis Khan's children went and they were defeated by the Egyptians. And fundamentally, Muslims lost the appetite of gaining knowledge. Knowledge culture became secondary, and art, which is not bad in my opinion, but monuments and mausoleum and all sorts of things became the parameters for Muslim power. Even the Safavid and the Ottomans towards the end, and the Mughal Empire. And if the empire in the top becomes corrupt and becomes weak, then ordinary people will be more corrupt, more weak. And that has been the case. And colonialism came, and that's the history. So what I always say, that we should bring a knowledge culture in the family with some basic handful of rules, 3 to 5, not more than that. With an agreed policy of rewards and sanctions. That's also that's a part of discipline, and discuss this in one of the slides. And we should involve our children in formulating these house rules, because if they become part of this process, then implementation will become easier, especially when it comes to children's online activities and screen time. If elderly children comes up and say, okay, mom and dad ask, what do you think we should, how much do you think we should use our time and when? And if things come from children and discussion goes free and frank discussions, and mom and dad just facilitate the discussion, and some routines are agreed on, then it is easy for the whole family to implement, because children have become part of the process. That's why consultation is fundamentally important. And electronic gadgets fundamentally, well, they're part of the modern civilization. We cannot ignore that. How we use them is important. It's like riding horse. If you know how to ride your horse, it will be your servant. But if horse rides on you, then you'll be pushed under its feet. So can be addictive to children, but potential, all this we discussed. So we let us go to the next slide, inshallah. So we have to be careful that in this family routines, we agree with children and implement them, these rules. And if we don't implement them, it doesn't work. I know I live in an area where there's a 20-mile speed, because there's a breeze and there's something in here. But because there's no camera I need, people don't care about this 20-mile written on the bar, on the post. So law is useless until it is implemented, but implementation has to be consistent and through fairness and justice. Okay, behavior and causes. Why do people who are born as innocent with the fitra, angels, we call our little children our angels, little angels, why do they grow this habit? Well, one is, this is the nature. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with fujur and taqwa. In everybody of us, we have got evil nature or feelings, and taqwa is this continuous confrontation going on in ourselves. And prophets and siddiqs and shuhada, those who give their life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they know how to control this, they control them. But nobody is perfect apart from prophets. So in our real life, we all will be faulty. We all will are. That's why we have to constantly nurture our taqwa or conscience, so that we can defeat our fujur or evil nature. Okay, there are many factors for a child to become misbehaved. There could be emotional factors. If mom and dad, their love is probably partial, or a child sees that other sibling is loved more than me, then there'll be envy. So there could be emotional factors. There could be other emotional factors. If mom and dad shouts or threatens them with some fear. There could be physical and medical factors. Age is also a factor, especially age factor in the sense that when puberty, this time of puberty and non-puberty, this phase is dangerous, because there's not only physical change in a boy or girl, there's an emotional change as well. The boy and girl doesn't realize and appreciate, is he a boy or girl, or is he a woman or man? So age is important. And also role modeling is very important. If there is no visible role model in the family around a child, within the mom and dad in the family, or within the elder siblings, then that child will look for role models outside, some football star or some film star or some this and that. And context is also important. So if a child is just coming from school and you shout at the child, parents should not do this, but if some happens, then probably child will get angry. And of course, there are some personality traits. It's the nature within, genetic reason. Say some certain diseases could be the factors. So parents are not health experts. Parents are not, most parents probably. If you are a health expert, that's fine. Parents may not be health experts. Parents may not be psychologists, but I think basic parenting, especially parents those who, and all parents love their children, they will realize by the face of their children and because of the overall background, they will be more or less have some knowledge of medics, knowledge of psychology, and they have to observe each of their children minutely, and so that they know why is the child behaving this way where he or she didn't do few weeks or few days before. So because children bring with inquisitiveness, energy, creativity, and adventure, so we have to give them absolute freedom, especially until the age of 7. And we have to see what is the nature in it, or what's the nurture mechanism, so that we can build or mold their behavior in the way that we want. Because akhlaq is, at the end of the day, akhlaq is the essence of Islam, and Prophet ﷺ came to this world to perfect human akhlaq. Next slide will more or less is the expression of children's misbehavior, rudeness, or and that's quite a fundamentally there are 4 in my opinion, and all this could be mild, moderate, or severe. So aggressive behavior, threatening or causing physical harm, fighting, bullying, using weapons. Weapons means not Kalashnikov or others, but in a knife and other things, or some stick. An elder brother or sister could be violent to this younger sibling. Destructive behavior, intentional destruction of property, arson, vandalism. Nature, I'm talking about the worst situation. The arsonist and vandalist could be teenagers in a society, especially in some inner city areas. Deceitful behavior, lying, stealing, shoplifting. These could be features. And of course, violation of family rules or social rules, running away, skipping schools, or violating the family rules that they were part of making decision of. So these behaviors should be looked into, and I hope parents who look after their children look after, everybody looks after their children, sorry, but parents who look after the behavior aspect and educational aspect and character aspect of their children should always, every day, every now and then, mom and dad together should observe. I'm not saying that you become too nosy, you breathe on their neck. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Children should be given freedom, but we can observe our children and see how pattern is developing. Some people come to us when the situation is so serious. And one sister came to me on the phone, 21-year-old son has certain problems. And the question that came to my mind, I put that in a mild manner, what have they done before he reached 21? So if parents look into the child's overall development, physical, emotional, intellectual, then all parents, without being a psychologist or without being a medic, can realize what can happen. Following slide goes into parenting style. That is fundamentally important. Parenting style is just a leadership style in a miniature scale. If a leader is assertive and consult community and is not aggressive, then normally the leader and can make decision on time. People like them in a country, in a society, in a community, in a mosque, in the family. And there could be neglectful parents, doesn't care, doesn't bother, casual. And instantly it reminds me of the film Matilda, Roald Dahl. The parents were totally neglectful, and in a fictional world, the girl can become a sorcerer or magician, but in the real world, girl or boy will be totally destroyed because of the neglect. And neglect is one of the 4 child protection issues as well. And laissez-faire means too liberal, that my child hasn't grown yet. It's 10, 11, 12. I have seen some moms try to feed their children and very worried the child doesn't eat. So the issue is um, absolute freedom is meaningless. Freedom has to have some boundary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayhi salam and asked them to go wherever they could go apart from certain tree. So there was a small test. Human beings should not be given absolute freedom because it's not in the human nature to make full judgment of the situation. Okay, so there are certain types. Authoritarian is, of course, dictatorial parents. So style of mom and dad could be different, but they have to sort that out before they treat their children, before they go to their children. If mom is too soft or too hard, dad is too hard or too soft, they have to, at least when they deal collectively, give the similar message. Similar means not totally different message. And mom and dad shouldn't argue in an aggressive manner in front of the children, or should not undermine each other in front of the children, because that will be that will have devastating effects. Okay, so no authoritarian, no too liberal, not neglectful or disengaged. What we need is a tough love. Tough love means, tough word probably is not accurate in here. We need to love our children, but with boundaries. We always love our children, even if they do wrong. We have to always say, I love you. But if a child does certain thing that is wrong, then only the wrong thing should be pointed out and criticized. Okay, so personality and action should be separated when we put discipline in front of the children. So the top right hand quadrant is important for us. That's a warm relationship, that is assertive relationship. We have to avoid permissive and hostile relationship. This quadrant is fundamentally important for us to have a parenting style. And of course, nobody is going to be perfect. And some parents' loving aspect will be more than toughness aspect. That's measurable. That's acceptable. And in Islam is the middle way. So we cannot be exactly on the middle way of 50%. If we go to 30 to 70% either side, that's acceptable. I'm not saying that's perfect. If we go to the next slide, then there are few examples of implementing discipline techniques. I'll come towards the end, the last slide, as the discipline sequence as to what are the, and in the parenting course, these are discussed widely, and there is some role play, but in here I'll just make one or two important points on 2-3 fundamental issues. One is, whenever we ask our child to do certain things, and mom and dad always ask things, we have to make sure that we understand the age and maturity of the child. We cannot ask a 5-year-old child to do a job that cannot be done even by a 10-year-old child. So age appropriate and manageable job, the task that the child can do. And I mentioned last week that we should give bite-sized tasks so that a child can do it, and we can praise the child, and we can hug or cuddle or whatever we can do. That's an opportunity to give our love, because I asked them to do a certain thing and they did it, and it's an opportunity. But if I ask them to do a certain difficult task, they cannot do this. So there is no opportunity to praise them or hug them. So this is an opportunity to close our relationship, deepen our relationship. So that means it has to be, anything that I ask them to do is appropriate clarity, not ambiguity. Say, I sometimes make a mention of Nasiruddin Hodja. He was very funny, he was wise. One day his friend came and he was chatting, and his friend said, friend, can I have a glass of water? Nasiruddin asked his 10-year-old son to come. When he came, and he gave him a slap. his son, and the friend was very surprised. Why are you slapping him before he was going to bring a glass of water? Nasruddin smiled and said, my friend, you don't know my son. I know him very well. He will go bring the glass of water and he will not hold it tightly, and glass will fall down, water will fall, glass will break. So I'll have to slap him later on. And I have done this earlier. So it may be a joke, but this has a lesson that Nasruddin should have told his 10-year-old son, can you bring a glass of water? Or any parent should understand by the ability of their own children because of the age and maturity. So give simple step-by-step age-appropriate instructions, explain what you want to see or hear. Give a reason. If a child says, okay, why should I do that, Abu or Mom? Give a reason. Do not say, okay, because I told you. That's not the answer. Check that he or she understands. And if a child cannot do it, but you want him to do it, then show role play or practice with the child so that child becomes confident. And afterwards, if the child does it correctly, hug, praise, and thank. That is the nature. And if a child does incorrectly, rather than telling off, okay, my son you have done, or my daughter you have done, this part is okay, this part you should do in a different manner, let me show you. So this is the basic. It looks very simple in a family, but I think many of the commotion between mom and dad and children comes because of how parents asks children to do certain things and how children react. And if a child is busy doing something or playing or working, and in the midst you ask him or her to do something, he forgets, and there's a temptation of telling off. Okay, next slide shows, I'm going to finish in a few minutes, inshallah. Next slide shows about incentives and sanctions. That is another simple mechanism of motivate a child to certain things, and also prevent a child from not doing certain things. We have to remember that incentive should not be seen as a bribe. My son, if you memorize this one, I will give you £5. I will give you £5. If you go there, you have to go 10 pounds, 10 quids. It doesn't work like that. It has to be planned. Mom and dad should agree on certain, and some of the things could be discussed in the family sessions, and agree that if you can do certain things for over a week or for over a month, we will take you to certain cafe and we'll eat together. Says eating together in a cafe is not compulsory, but there's an extra gift to a child. Or we'll allow you to one of your friends to come and play with you. There could be many other things. So in a family session, clarify the technique. Ask child what motivates him or her, what they want to have, what food they want to eat, what places they want to go, all these things. If you ask them, of course, you know your child's mentality, and tell that she or he will be rewarded or sanctioned or doing certain tasks weekly or monthly. So you can make a program. You can ask one of your children to write it down, or you can write it down. You can remember this. It can be a bit formal, but not too formal. It could be informal, and list a few tasks, including household chores that a child should and can do. One is making his or her own bed, tidying up table, leaving bathroom clean, putting clothes in right places, etc., etc. You make your own list, and you know whether your child can do or cannot do. And then, if you set a task for a month or week, whatever it is, you try to remember that, so that after a month you can say, oh, my son, my daughter, what a lovely name. You have done this correctly. Out of 30, you have done 30. I'm so happy. You give a hug or this and that, you give a present or whatever take outside or buy a book or whatever he or she likes. And if things done wrongly or incorrectly, then of course there will be no reward. But that doesn't mean that's the end of the world. We are just a neutral phase, and you are not too happy, but you are not unhappy. That's a neutral phase. And do not at any way become angry. And because what happens, you have the right to get angry, but the nature of your anger will either motivate him or her or demotivate him or her. And of course, you have to clarify what you have been doing. Everything needs to be clarified to the children. Last, okay, penultimate slide is timeout. Inshallah, I think many parents do this. I see my own son and daughter sometimes do this with their own children. So I think this is a natural mom's or dad's instinct to give a child timeout. But there should be some techniques, and parents should know how it works better. So it's not for a simple mistake or small things. Timeout is normally towards the upper end of strong discipline. So if a child violates family rule more than twice and also shows disrespectful behavior, then only timeout should be given, and it should be given not too frequently, otherwise it will lose its value. And normally it works better for a child above 7, but I have seen many parents do this to their children below 7, and this could be fun. That's fine. Okay, so what is timeout? Tell your child the reason and purpose of timeout. And you mentioned that you have done this, so I'm sad and I want to give you timeout. Blatant display, rule violation, confrontation, out of control behavior, etc. Find an appropriate place and length of time. That is important. Child has to be put in a safe place. Don't send a child to bathroom and kitchen, because you are a bit angry, or child may have been angry, and the child can harm himself or herself. So, and the average time is 1 minute for a child says. If a child is 10-year-old, give that child for 10-minute timeout. Total reflection. And once a child stops talking, stops arguing, only then timeout starts. And then you come out after 10 minutes or whatever time, you come out, remind the reason for the purpose, and if the child says sorry or understands, hug and praise the child. So this is, in a sense, a very silent way of making a child think and understand of his or her own behavior. And of course, when you describe things to the child, ask him or her to go for timeout. Voice should be low. And what I have heard and have learned, that the lower the voice, more powerful it is. It has impact on a child. I remember when I was a science teacher in one of these North London schools, one of my colleagues, a white elderly person, he used to shout and shout and shout. And he used to, in the last break, his voice was half broken. And some of his colleagues, me and others, we used to, John, how does your voice go? He took it very lightly. And towards the end of the day, his voice was virtually gone. Following day, he comes with fresh voice, he just shouts. Whereas other teacher I have seen, especially this head of science, he comes in front of the class, everybody is quiet. It's the personality, it's the personality and persona that you show your children, that children get used to. If the child sees that you are a talkative person, then they will see that in that way. If child say you are weighty in certain moment, they will realize that. Children are very, very clever. Last slide. And I'll not discuss about this more. It is the part of the parenting program that there are many ways. There are discipline sequence is important. Long-term and positive discipline regime, not a quick fix, is fundamentally important. Because quick fix could be easily long-term shout and you go, suddenly child becomes quiet. You say that, okay, children is okay. It's not, because shouting has long-term effect. So it's a long-term, discipline is not punishment, and discipline has to be thought out. Role modeling, fundamentally, that's the essence of discipline. Family rule setting, praise and appreciate, I mentioned this. Giving attention, say if a child comes to you, you just more or less come face to face with the child and address the issue. Do not work and then talk sideways. And it was one of my bad experience happened with my elder son. I was busy with doing something. He came for certain advice, and I was just also noise, and he went away. Still, he reminds me that I did that mistake, and I apologize every time. So giving attention, clear instructions are mentioned, incentives and sanctions mentioned, ignore and praise, first, then, confronting, time out. These are all, I cannot explain this now, but the last one I'll simply mention, is not mentioned in here, that's the smacking. Is it mentioned? I don't know. That's the 11th should be. Smacking is the 11th, but smacking, I have not mentioned this because smacking is not the thing that any parenting person will say or teacher will say, especially in this country, in a culture of children are normally seen as customers. Passengers, even passengers are seen as customers. Customers cannot do any wrong. In this liberal culture, children are the customers. They cannot do any mistake. Unfortunately, they have taken away some of the parental rights, unfortunately. So in some countries, totally illegal. So if it is illegal, you don't do this. If it is legal, even then, if you do it, you have to be clear, my son, I'm touching you or I'm holding you because you have done this. But it's a big discussion. I cannot do this discussion now. But I think over this last 45 minutes, I tried to say some of the aspects of discipline which should be positive, and some lot of areas I have left out because in a session like this we cannot discuss everything. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us so that we as parents become equipped with the knowledge and understanding of raising our children to make them better human beings, better Muslims, better citizens in terms of their character, akhlaq, and morality, so that one day means time will come, inshallah, when Muslims can reproduce their own history that was unique in the history of human civilization. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Bari, for a very insightful session on positive discipline. Again, I mean, for me, I think what you're suggesting is emotion, parenting style, and having a structure and a long-term vision in terms of how to implement all those strategies. The quick fixes are there, but they are not the ones that should be used all the time in ensuring and creating and nurturing, actually, young adults who will become leaders in the future. It's very interesting because I think what you're suggesting here is, as a teacher, as a school teacher, is that we take these principles in a school and we actually make it into a bigger system and structure. It's essentially, school is a bigger parenting environment, as I see it. But yeah, thank you very much once again. And what I would ask the participants is that if you want to ask a question, please do put your hand up using the reaction button. I have got a question here from someone on the chat. So, Doctor, this person said, we have tried to motivate our child by offering him something he wants for him to improve in his study, increase his effort. But we have found that he has switched it on us and now demands that he will not study, listen, unless he's promised a new pair of trainers, etc., etc. So the child has become really clever.
I think I mentioned that it should not be a bribe. So probably the child has taken that as a bribe. Reading should be natural in a house. And as I mentioned probably last week, that reading should be started by parents themselves. And I read a book written by a retired teacher who wrote this book, a small book, but it says parents should feign or pretend that they are reading when their child comes from outside. That will give an impression that my parent, father or mother, has a reading habit. And of course, this pretension for good things is not bad in my opinion, but parental reading should be natural. I know parents are busy, especially moms at home, and especially if dads are really busy outside, and they may feel tired. But if reading becomes part of their habit, say in the morning, in the afternoon, in the weekends, and that will encourage them to read with the children. They sit with the children, they listen to children reading, and they will read certain things. Of course, reading ability of parents is important. And I think what in here, probably I'm talking to the most of the educated parents. So there should not be an issue of reading culture, creating reading culture for these parents. And this should be, in my opinion, encouraged. And we all have our sphere of friends. We can encourage others to create this reading culture or knowledge culture in a family. So this reading and giving is a gift. Probably it wasn't done properly. I cannot judge from here. But so see things in that manner, that it should not be taken as a bribe. It should be natural, and it should not be given too frequently, because anything done too frequently loses its spirit. And you know, it's Ramadan every month. Ramadan came every 3 months. We couldn't have done this. And if instead of 5 times prayer that we have, and there are 50 times that originally was proposed to Prophet, we couldn't do this. So everybody has this space. We have to create a space. We have to create a loving environment. And many of the things that we should start and ask our children to do that, and they will say that, okay, my mom is doing without any benefit, so we should do this. So yeah, so I think this is important.
Thank you very much, Dr. We've got a couple of people with a hand up, so I'm going to ask Haji Idris Khamisa to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Brother Idris,
my beloved brother, it's always a joy to listen to you.
Nice to see you.
The wisdom you bring, the reading you bring, you are leaving such a wonderful legacy. May Allah bless you. And I must say, in a short time, you have succinctly encapsulated so much. I just want to share with you this 2 incidents in my own life.
Teach us.
No, not teach you. No. You're my brother. I'm learning from you. I like it. So anyway, the 2 things is, one is, I'm in complete agreement with you that parents need to first extrinsically motivate the kids. Inshallah, they will develop a love for good things and they'll follow through. And there were 2 things. One was, I grew up in a home where my father was a strict martinet. I got enough hiding. I was a naughty boy. Now I'm a naughty man now. So, and about 2 weeks before he passed away, he told me, Idris, my beloved son, I gave you a lot of hiding. I said, yes, Daddy. He said, but you didn't turn out to be too bad. So, but the critical thing that happened, this is when I was about 13 years old, my mom told me, Idris, do you know your daddy every morning after Fajr, he makes dua for each one of you by name. I said, Daddy, the same daddy hits me, he does this. So I learned something, your children must catch you saying good things about them. And Alhamdulillah, there's so much more to say, but anyway, I would like to say to the participants, you need to reflect on your own parenting style. And one of my favorite quotations is, parenting is not so much your relationship with your child, but your relationship with your spouse. May Allah give you a long life, my beloved brother. May Allah give you strength, inshallah, and to need our trust. Oh, I like it.
MashaAllah.
Thank you. Thank you, Haji Idris. Would you like to add anything on this, Dr. Bari? Dr. Bari, would you like to?
Oh, you asked me. Sorry, no.
Yeah, would you like
I don't have anything to ask. Anything to add. I think Brother Idris has reminded me of my own father. He was not that educated, but I learned and I knew and I heard from him that he used to pray for me like that. And so my reading habit, as a just story, very briefly, I was a very naughty boy, as Brother Idris probably was. And I went to secondary school in year 6 or 7, when I was 12 or 13. A teacher, like my grandfather of age, he was from Aligarh, graduate from Aligarh. Just I was coming home, he grabbed my hand, took me to the library and asked me, do you read books? Straight, in Bangladeshi culture, it's very, very straight. Do you read books, boy? I was I was not sure what to say. And then he just gave me a book on the life of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in Bengali, and asked me to read it and come to him and give me the answers. He will ask questions. It was just very forceful instruction. And so I came home. Teacher said I was small, and I read the book. I had to read it, few hundred pages, and went to the teacher next time, and he asked some questions. I could answer some, I couldn't, and that is the start of my reading habit. And Persian philosophy and everything. When I was a teenager, I read this, and now I got a book on Central Asian Muslim contribution to human civilization. So from that moment of learning of Persian mysticism, I am now learning about the extent of how for 400 years, from 800 to 1200 AD, how Central Asian Muslims contributed to not only Muslim civilization, but to the whole of humanity. So it's just a spark of someone, fatherly dua or teacher's instruction and advice or anything else. Jazakumullah khair.
Okay. Aisha, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Ji, Assalamualaikum. Very, very useful question. My question a bit difficult, and I emailed Dr. Bari last week as well. Now, I'm a single mom. I've got 3 kids, and my 15-year-old son has got very complex care needs. He's on wheelchair and other problems as well. Now, the problem is because in his case, lots of professionals involved, psychologists, OTs and stuff. They said because he's physically very limited, it's okay for him to go on computer all the time, most of the time. And I do say, look, we have to do the time limits. We have to discipline him as well. I can't just let him on the computer whole day. So at the moment, he's just addicted to all the computer games. He's not studying at all because he's in shielded self-isolation. It's been 3 months now. And as a mom, to see him like this is very, very painful. He is very intelligent brain-wise. His brain is very, very brilliant. He was doing HIFS class 2 years ago. And then because of physical deterioration of his health, he can't go to masjid anymore because in my area, there is no accessible masjid. As a single mom, I'm struggling. I've got other 2 kids, and just seeing him to be like this is very painful. So when I try to discipline him, put time limits on him, he then discuss with his OT or social services or other psychologists. They say, no, it's very difficult for him, look from his perspective. So he's getting more advantage of it. And then he threatens me, oh, if you put time limits on me, I'll tell the social worker, I'll tell this. So as a mom, it's very, very difficult for me to accept all this. I just need more help. I've already also spoken to his dad. Can you please, because he's a 15-year-old boy, can you please involve in his parenting as well? And he is not participating at all. He is married again, has got kids. He doesn't care, to be very honest. I'm so sorry to say that, but I just need help as a mom, as a single mom. What shall I do? How shall I channel him to be more creative and to be in the right path, apart from duas?
Aisha?
Are you Sister Masuma?
No, my name is Sarah, and I'm using my daughter's phone, who is Aisha. So my name is Sarah.
Okay. I got an email from a sister. I gave my personal mobile number. She hasn't called me. So if you can email me, then probably it's better we talk. And as you said, if you have involved lots of education and health experts, then maybe my advice will not be that meaningful. But at least I can hear and I can suggest if I am able a few things that may help or may not. But you can email. Did you email me by this? You said. Hello.
Sorry, I've emailed on info@nida trust, the general email. I didn't email. I don't have your personal phone number or email address. But Masuma, I do remember from last session, she was another sister who wanted to speak to you personally.
Yeah, she emailed me. I gave my number. She didn't call me. So if you can email me take my email from Nida Trust.
Okay.
Because it may take a bit longer discussion, which probably will not be fair to the others. So we can talk, inshallah.
Okay. Himi, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for such an informative session. Alhamdulillah. May Allah reward you. Just a quick question, general question on the current state that we are living in with a lockdown. So we've been in lockdown for 3 months now, and obviously Islamically we're encouraged to spend time with family and the wider family, but we have been unable to do that. So how do you keep your child motivated, encouraged, during a lockdown like this? Because it's as parents it starts to get difficult, because although we think children don't understand, I think they probably do understand more than we think. So how do you try to understand their feelings as well?
Jazakumullah khair, brother. I discussed this exactly the same thing in another global Zoom event in the beginning of the lockdown, in the early phase of the lockdown. My simple understanding and advice would be, and I mentioned that how do we keep our children not only busy, but creatively busy or purposefully busy. We can keep children busy with probably iPhone and other things constantly, but that doesn't help. And the way to do things probably is both parents come together, depending on your space of room or house that you live in. If it is a very congested place, it is not easy, I understand this, but if there is some space or there's some little garden in the front or back, or there are spare rooms, then probably it becomes a bit easier. So mom and dad should come together, and initially they consult how to keep their children busy in certain things. And once they have their own understanding, then they should involve the elderly children and make them part of this family discussion, consultation, so that they come up with few things. One is, in the real life, we have weekdays and weekends. At the moment, we don't know which one is weekdays and weekend. It's lost, especially in the first 10 weeks. I even lost feeling of weekend and weekdays, especially for parents. I'm not parent means my children are grown up now. So parents have to make arrangement of some sort of programs following probably children's school routine, a routine for 5 days, weekdays, and routine for weekends, and in consultation with the elderly children, and with rewards and sanctions, with time differentiation, the carpet time, the exercise time, this time, that time, that the school does. In the weekend, things could be relaxed. And how children get more interested is if we involve them in their age-appropriate household chores. We keep them busy on asking them to do certain things. It's not, some people may say this is slave labor. We are not doing the slave labor in our family. We give them tasks depending on their age and interest to do certain. There are many things in the household: helping mom and dad, cleaning the bed, bringing the basket, cloth basket, and all. There are many, could be millions we can think of. And for primary children, certain things that we can ask them to do. For secondary children, and if children get interest and we praise them and they do things well, and that will help us relax a bit as well as that will give them self-esteem and confidence that they are helping their mom and dad. That will build relationship, strengthen relationship, and they will hopefully be motivated. And in this routine or program, electronic gadgets, iPhone and iPad should come in the discussion, and elderly children should be asked their opinion, and that should be agreed as well. And once we agree on this family 3 to 5 rules, mom and dad have to consistently, lovingly and caringly, politely and firmly make sure that they are implemented. If things go wrong slightly, that's okay. But if things go wrong always, then that's not okay. So it is not easy, but there's no other alternative but to do this. And of course, we always criticize about the social media, but in this process, we are doing this through social media, virtual connections through WhatsApp and others, family meetings. My family is now dispersed in 4 areas, and WhatsApp is a wonderful connections every day. We see our sons and daughter, and also our grandchildren. That's a wonderful, probably at least 1 hour discussion often. So we have to be creative and innovative in our own ways. And obviously things may not go right, and we have to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes things easier for us. And if we try, if we seek Allah's help, and if children are cooperative, then this period could be really wonderful period in terms of building our family, building our knowledge base, and making our family a knowledge-based family, inshallah.
Okay, we're going to be in the last 15 minutes. I think the hour is just finished now. If anyone wants to, please, you're welcome to continue to stay with us for the next 15 minutes. But if you feel that you need to go, then you're welcome to go. But please, but I would encourage you to stay. There are a few more questions, some really interesting questions that come up now, some written ones as well. So I'm going to just ask the final hand-up question, which is from Oxford City Sanctuary. So I presume this is Sheikh from Oxford. Sheikh, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please. A succinct question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa
rahmatullah. Brother.
What I have, of course, that was an excellent lecture, Doctor. I know I love to listen to the lecture. That was excellent for the whole community. However, I'm looking, of course, as an Imam of Oxford University and Brooks University. We usually look in the critical side of course, our life. I believe, as I said, as Imam of the university, I believe the knowledge of Islam, student knowledge of Islam is very low. And of course, we know they're going to school, mashallah, they're going to supplementary school early ages. But when they get into university, they forget it all, and they are not interested that much. Because several years, as you know, of course, I'm involved in the universities. Now, what can we do? Because it looks like they are not learning by heart, which stays. I am asking people, it, for example, a student, can you see the adhan? He doesn't know. I said, how do you know? You are 20 years old, 19 years old. How do you don't know? He says, I'm sorry. And many is not a 1 or 2, is a many like that, and it looks like a little bit worried. Therefore, what we can do on the earliest stages, which stays in their mind, and never they forget. This is important. They learn, of course. We know they learn. We know they learn to go to the masjid, to go into the supplementary school, as we have to learn a lot. But as soon as they get to university, as they older, they completely forget. Somehow we have to hold them, and somehow we have to make it remember for the rest of their life. Now, what is your opinion on how we can improve that? This is a big question.
Thank you very much,
Dr. Ramzi. You are evergreen and ever active, mashallah. I think this is a big issue, and this is the essence of our community's current situation. I mentioned this. many of our parents, and it's a bigger discussion. The problem is our learning of Islam in many countries were not prioritized. And when I say is, we have made Islam difficult for ordinary people to follow, busy people to follow, whereas Islam is very simple, in my opinion. For simple people, Islam is simple. For intellectual people, they will learn things through their intellectual process. Islam is basic beliefs, basic rituals, and following halal and haram, keeping away from major sins. That is basically Islam's core. But main thrust of Islam is about building character, akhlaq. And how much time does it take for us to pray a day or in a week? And 5 times prayer, 4, that's compulsory, 17 rakah. And Saum or fasting comes once a year. Zakat is for the rich people. Hajj is for rich and able people once alive. So these few things are for privileged, financially well-off people and physically healthy people. But all of our time, apart from this 5 times prayer, is to live our livelihood. And for that, if we make Islam so easy, then what happens? Many parents will be able to follow it and will feel confident. And then in the raising children in the family would mostly involve or educating them, building their character, human character, social character, national character, individual character. As I mentioned, I mention 3 things: as a good human being, good citizen of a country that we live in, and good practicing Muslims. And obviously, becoming a good practicing Muslim, we can aspire to become like a Sahaba. It is virtually impossible, but we can try. So the reason we don't see this knowledge base in our community is a not only a matter of worry, it's a matter of threat, in the sense that Muslims which created civilization was based on knowledge. And I mentioned of the Central Asian Muslims and Khawarizmi, all the famous people. The culture was at that time a reading culture, but somehow we have to create a reading culture at home. And if children are adult and they don't have basic knowledge of Islam, that is real worry. So parents, even then, they have a responsibility, and they have a responsibility in advising and morally inspiring them. And obviously, if the children live with the family in a home while going to the university, and family environment will be crucial for even adult children to practice Islam on the basis of knowledge. So what I'm saying probably is repeating, and what Sheikh you are probably doing in your area. But I'm emphasizing these when I talk about parenting, because so far we talk about parenting just raising them to become good Muslim. But good Muslim in the midst of the Islamophobia and racism across the world, we are in a real crisis in the world. And our community level of dignity and level of weight compared to other communities still very low. So Jazakumullah khair for highlighting this. And I think it's a matter for us to take this up and tell people around us, and try to inspire people around us, so that we gradually create, especially in this society, which Britain is a meritocratic country, unlike many Muslim countries. We created a culture of knowledge. We created a culture of reading, so that our akhlaq becomes better, and then Muslims will be taken very seriously and positively then, inshallah.
Okay, there's one person mentioned, just relating to this point, is that along with what you mentioned, Dr. Saab, that we haven't prioritized in what we called our parents' home country. teaching of Islam as a priority. And also they mentioned that unfortunately we don't teach the meaning of the Quran with love and mercy, and getting the students and children actually to love Quran and the teachings of Islam. Okay, next question. There's one question from Sadia. It says, older children and younger siblings, what does one do when older siblings undermine parent improving on discipline? A quick answer on that, please, Dr.
Older children undermining parents in creating a discipline at home.
Yeah.
Okay. I think older children, probably parents have lost time with them, but older children are still children. As long as they are living with parents, as long as they are respectful, there is still time. In Islam, parenting can continue or should continue until the age of 21. 21 is fully adult, and of course 7, 14, these phases, if the parent look after their children properly, then 14 to 21 and adult life can become smoother. So if elder children become an inhibiting factors, then parent should use their love. I don't want to use the love bomb. Should use their love to convince their elder children. Love means because they should be friendly now, and seek their help in helping their younger siblings, because I think in a family, elder siblings love their younger siblings and also vice versa, and give them some responsibility along of yours. My son, you are now 16 or 17, or you are now 18. Now we are getting older. It's incumbent on you to help your brother and sister. Give them some responsibility. And many people love responsibility. Give them some little bit of authority, not the authority to punish them or discipline them or shout at them, because they love each other. Siblings normally love one another. And if they are given some responsibility that I want you to help your younger brother or sister on this aspect, initially give them a subject area. If someone is very good in this subject, say English or language or history or certain, through that they will start communicating, and gradually you can turn this subject area into the Islamic manners and customs and discipline and all sorts of things. So what I'm saying is parents have to always try to be creative and innovative, because they know their family context, family environment. So if they're creative and innovative, both mom and dad think, two brains work together. And if one of the elder siblings really, really helpful, involve them. So as a family, we can address some of the issue that we may find difficult in other situations, inshallah.
Okay, I'm just going to take another few more questions together, Doctor. So first one is about techniques, suitable techniques to deal with teenagers. So that's the first question. The second question, okay, the second one is, there's a person who asked that they have a 4-year-old daughter who cooperates, does well, but sometime and suddenly stops and does not talk or respond. But generally, the child learns and cooperates with the parents, but they suddenly stop. So what can I do in this situation? The next one, which is linked, I think, with it's a big teenage issue, and unfortunately, it's also becoming an issue lower down now with younger children because of the unfortunately, overemphasis on this area, which is that parent has found that they found that their teenage daughter is involved with some activities of sexual nature and sending information and things like that. They have spoken to that person indirectly. So how can they deal with that situation, and how can they engage with that engage the child on that? So if you can answer those three questions, and then I will take the final couple, and then we'll wrap it up, inshallah.
Teenage, as I mentioned from last week, teenage is a phase in Islam. Legally doesn't exist, puberty or pre-puberty. But this phase is important, the transition phase, when a son or daughter, when a boy and girl becomes physically capable of having children. So that's the basic thing. But there are emotional aspects, there are physical aspect is the puberty, emotional aspect, and other social aspects as well. So handling a teenage children, especially in the puberty area, has to be really, really empathetic and loving and caring, because that's the probably crucial and dangerous period, because they are vulnerable emotionally, but they want to show off, and the lack of confidence and self-esteem can come in. So empathy, love, care, constant engagement, and keeping them involved in activities so that tension in life doesn't overtake them. 4-year-old daughter, am I right? 4-year-old daughter is still very, very young. Suddenly stops. One parents have to observe on what situation, how often, and for how long. So they have to keep a record of that. And if there is any suspicion of certain types of um, uh, mental health and other issues, consult with experts. But I will not probably worry that much when children suddenly stops, because children live in a fantasy world. They create a virtual fantasy world with around themselves. All children are not same. So just observe and see how he or she is progressing. She is progressing because it's a daughter. And the discussion of sexual nature, I think it is a taboo in our community, but in the society that we are living, this is not taboo anymore. Even children of age of 5, 7, 6, 7 are given some type of knowledge which is insensitive in our understanding. So what I would suggest parents do, that they keep on having discussion or asking children whatever they have learned in the school. And if something comes of this nature, even in the earlier period, parents should not be off put or should not tell of the child for saying certain words or uttering certain words, because that's a part of their growth, and also they are learning things from outside. And this is an issue that's fundamentally important for human beings. Sexuality is important because this is the way how human progeny continues. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed this issue in the Quran in some areas in a very sophisticated way. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has done that, so we should not be unnecessarily too embarrassed. What we have to do is to maintain our dignity, utter our words very carefully, and clarify Muslim position, Islamic position, without unnecessarily going into attacking the others, because the problem of attacking the others is you may be able to articulate your opinion in public if you are knowledgeable, which will not harm you socially and politically and media-wise. But if your teenage son or daughter says certain things which may go against the law of the land, then that will unnecessarily create problem. Prevent agenda is a big agenda. Muslims have been fighting and the government is not relenting. That's very unfortunate in this country, and it's criticized by many countries, including the UN. But our country, Britain, unfortunately, is not going to give up the prevent agenda. So we have to be careful about prevent, what we say, how we say, especially if it comes from children, and there could be unnecessarily a social issue, and prevent could be involved. So parents have to be, as I said, parents have to be 24/7 parents in terms of not only raising the children physically and emotionally, but also giving ideas and guiding them and navigating so that our children do not fall foul of the law of the land, and also do not fall foul of the Islamic requirements. This is not easy, but if we try and pray and continuously try to create new ideas, context to our own family, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us, inshallah.
Okay, Dr. Zah, I'm going to take all those questions together, so you might need to make notes of those points, okay, just to wrap up. The first one, you mentioned about the hadith, where you stated about the 4 conditions of hypocrisy, and this person says, does this mean that a child that does one or more of these is a hypocrite, in a sense that they have lost their belief in Allah, or does it have another meaning? The next one is, how does one implement and reinforce discipline with modern day time challenges? So I think some of the things that you were mentioning, how do we implement that in modern context? Especially in that context, I think the person is asking if it's a single parent. How can they do that for both parents? You know. Okay, the next one. Right. How would you suggest on disciplining a child when you live with a joint family? Okay. Right. After that. In Britain, we have some legal restriction to deal with, which makes challenge even harder. Please, okay. So clearly, I mean, I think it's the context which you were talking about. Okay, I think there's another question around, you know, what if older teenagers, 13 to 17, are disrespectful? Right. How do you create a positive environment without electronics when relatives visit with children similar age and when visiting? Some children are addicted to electronics, and one parent gives to electronics for children too quickly. And I think you touched on about, so this person asked, at what age is it appropriate to discuss the idea of sex? Okay, so these are the kind of questions. If you can, Dr. Sab, wrap up on succinctly so that we can finish in 5 minutes, inshallah.
Yes, that's a very funny question. Children hypocrites. Well, if they are adult, that means post-puberty adult, where Islamic law is implemented on them, then we can probably think of that. Also, depending on their upbringing, and if a child wasn't educated properly, and he then parental contribution probably to a child was very minimal, then calling someone hypocrite is not right. Calling someone kafir is not right. Element of hypocrisy are probably with us, probably most of us, elements of hypocrisy within us, but that doesn't make us hypocrite. So we have to be very careful on this. And it's for the adult, depending on the understanding, depending on the situation. And of course, for any non-Muslim, that sometimes Muslims become over-enthusiastic that, okay, somebody has died, he's a very good man, but he's not a Muslim, he'll go to hell. Muslims are very good in making comments, and I heard that in 2 times in my life in here. When Diana died, Princess Diana, people said that she should go to Jannah. And some people said, very silly. And Nelson Mandela passed away. Some people said, okay, he is a wonderful man, he helped Muslims, but he's a kafir, he will go to hell. These are useless talk, bakwas in Urdu probably. We should not even utter this one, because there are some things which is under the remit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should not even talk about this. So calling someone hypocrite or kafir or this and that, unfortunately has become the takfiri tradition of certain sections. We should not go near that. Modern day context, implementing single parent, parenting is an effort which is probably, what should I say, parenting and teaching. These are the 2 things, I think, the very noble profession. Parenting is beginning because child is in a family, and a child means theologically, and they are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's steward on earth, And if we can raise them as a real steward on earth, we are successful. But our success and failure depends on our effort as well as children's performance. So only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows whether our effort has been better and whether He will forgive us for our mistakes. So that is between that's only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Extended family situation is very, very difficult, but I think parental responsibility lies with parents only. Parents means both parents, should make a serious effort if they live in an extended family environment, that final authority on children's well-being and children's raising lie with father and mother. Others can advise, others can do whatever but they should not be taking the lead on it, because that's important. Because mom and dad are responsible for children's upbringing. They can take help from others. If others cannot help, there should not be barrier of that. And in family discussion, this should be clarified. It may seem rude to probably grandparents or some other family members, but very politely and firmly this should be established. Otherwise, there'll be a real issue. And I have heard about this many times. Of course, legal restrictions. Legal restrictions is there in society. In this society, some of the things are not legal. It is social. Say, teaching children about sexuality, etc. If it is compulsory in terms of syllabus within the core subjects, then it's a big issue. But if it is not compulsory, parents can choose to opt out and discuss with the schools. That's one of the reasons that Muslim education experts, knowledgeable people who can be articulate, they should be part of school's governing body. Muslims should join as much as possible to the teaching profession. I think teaching is not only a best profession. Teaching for Muslims in the Western society is probably the best profession, in the sense that a teacher can understand things, and many people around that teacher in the family or friend circle can get benefit out of that. We should try to become more and more should try to become teachers. And then disrespectful behavior, relatives and electronic. Okay, that's another issue. Relatives come, similar age children come, and parents discuss, and they have their own discussion, and children sit and spend hour after hour after hour. Okay, if this is one-off in a year or 6 months, and this could be probably accommodated, but both parents, means parents, host parents as well as visiting parents, should sit and discuss how they will be spending their time in the house and how they will keep their children busy. And this is a matter of this discussion between parents, and I am sure parents, those who are sensible, will not dislike this discussion, and they will come up with certain activities for young people, and if it's necessary for spending 1 hour or half an hour to in the console, that could be allowed. People should be flexible, but people should not be giving total freedom to their children. What else? I think more or less I have covered other issues. Only thing I will say that through parenting, and probably mentioned in, I can't remember when and where, it's a sadaqah jariyah. Bani Adam's, all the activities will be cut off when one dies, apart from three things, and one of them is raising righteous children who will pray when they are alive and when they are dead. And so parenting is a noble task. Parents are teachers, parents are mentors, parents are leaders, especially moms, primordial leaders of human society. So a leader in a country and a parent in a family, more or less a miniature leader in the society. And as Muslims, we believe that we will one day meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if we can keep our children as sadaqah jariyah, that is the best, deepest, great investment in our life. We invest for our family, for house, this and that. But investing in children is the best investment for dunya as well as akhirah. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Bari, for your insightful presentation, as well as taking all those questions and queries. Just before everyone leave, can I just remind you of some of the programs that we have coming up? Of course, please do visit our website. There are a number of programs that we have. You can go and register for them. There's programs for supplementary schools. There's teachers' webinars. There's also further parenting courses. There's Accelerating to Leadership program, which is for those who are in independent Muslim school as well as in the state sector schools who are teaching to become middle leaders. We also have programs for supplementary school leaders there as well. So please do have a look and register for them if you have not registered. Tomorrow we have got two sessions. The first one is for supplementary school teachers, and it's on transformative Islamic education in Muslim tradition, explaining the educational legacy of Imam Ghazali by Dr. Abdullah Shahid from University of Warwick from 12 to 1. So if you have not registered for that program, please do register. And particularly if you know people who are teaching in weekend schools and madrasas and things like that, can you please let them know and promote it to them? And I encourage them to register for that course. It will be an enlightening one, especially when somebody talks about Imam Ghazali. You know, Imam Ghazali is a fountain of immense amount of knowledge. And I think he's is becoming extremely relevant in our modern Western context at the moment. From three, we have another program called the U-Teach program. It will be led by a senior lecturer from University of East London and our Director of Education, Babar Mirza. So the senior lecturer is Brother Marwan. He will be leading a session on how to get into teaching. And this is particularly directed at those people who are graduates or undergraduates and who are thinking about going into teaching profession. And as Dr. Abdul Bari has mentioned, I think it is critical that we as a Muslim community, you know, put a big emphasis in two areas. One of them is to become teachers, and the other one is to play a big role in governance so that we can support the educational process in our local areas as well as at a national level. And I think it is very important that we all contribute to that agenda. We will be having some programs coming up in the next couple of months on how to become a governor and what you can do to do so, and what role you can play in your local area and your local community as well. That program will be led by our treasurer, Brother Amirul Haq, and we will let you know about those programs in near future. Please do watch this space. The recording of this session will be available, as well as the PowerPoint as well. Our admin manager, Zainab Salim, will email those things to you. But please make sure that you have registered with us. If you have not registered, then we will not be able to send that information to you. So please register with us. And if you know anybody else who needs to register, please encourage them to register as well. So inshallah, we'll probably see some of you tomorrow. And if you're not available tomorrow, then of course we will see you next week when we will have a session with Dr. Mahira Ruby. She will be leading a whole session on emotional relationships. So once again, thank you very much for coming to the session today. And please do send us your feedback. Zainab will also send an online SurveyMonkey feedback form to you. If you can fill that in and please return it to us so that we know how the session has went and what we can do to improve in the future. So if I could ask all the participants, please, if you can leave, and if I could ask the NIDA Trust members and Dr. Abdul Bari to stay for a few minutes, please, online. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.